in passing, as well as us funding the contract. But I know there's a lot of stuff that the engineering team did as far as deployments or decisions in how we chose the contract, things like that. So there might be some bits of information that are before that first post or after the launch that would be relevant to the timeline. And I would appreciate if we could all take a couple of minutes here and help fill out this timeline to the best of our knowledge. This includes anyone from marketing and growth with launches on announcements or things like that, anything with customer support. This isn't just an engineering, this is a full team effort timeline here. So if we could take a couple of minutes here, I would really appreciate that. Feel free to type away.
Where can we find that link again? Sorry.
The link is posted in this stage chat.
Stage chat. Oh, okay.
I see there's some people hopping in to celebrate the wins thing as well. Please feel free to do that too while we're entering things. If someone enters something on either the left side or the right side that you agree with, feel free to put a +1 there so we can get kind of a feel of people who agree with things and get a temperature in the room on things we did well or things we didn't go well.
Anyone know when we got the UI, the screenshots for this work?
I think Beard or Doob would know. Maybe Diggy or Chow knows them.
The date where we had the designs ready?
Yeah.
I can look it up.
It was like the 9th or 10th because the kickoff was the 13th of September, I think. Or that's when the story breakdown was.
Yeah.
Story breakdown was on the 13th. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we had a meeting, I think a follow-up meeting to go over designs on the 9th. So I'd say around the 9th or the 10th. The designs.
I have this 9/9. I had this on my calendar. That was to go over the designs.
Yeah.
That sounds right. And I remember we were getting a head start even though the proposal hadn't passed yet. We were pretty confident we were going to get a head start. Yeah.
Whoops. We discovered the bug on the 14th, right? Was the
Which bug?
The contract expired bug.
The one that we saw on Thursday, I think, when the original contract expired.
Yeah. Maybe like 1 hour or 2 hours.
Do you mind muting your microphone, or I'll server mute you?
Thank you,
Thank you,
whoever.
Mike.
We got a big between 9:13 and 10:11. Anything big happen, or did we just kind of cruise?
Elma got married.
That's right. Yeah, well, those contracts were done super fast, right? He was leaving town. What date was that? Was that the
18th?
The 15th, because I took a few days before that.
Yeah, you were married on the 18th, is that right?
Yeah, the 18th. So.
Yeah, that means it was done on the 15th. Oops.
Is there anyone from marketing or growth on the call? It looks like this is all engineering focused, and I wanted to make sure that if we had any sort of communication or timeline issues with growth and marketing, that they're able to get all of their timeline on here as well. Doesn't look like it though. I know that early on in the process, there was some conversation kind of led by Elma around how we should decide the contract. Is any of that part of the timeline relevant to this retro, or was that pretty simple, cut and dry on how we decided to do that?
Can you be more specific? I don't remember exactly. I think it was, we pretty much had decided to use the same contract, and I think it was just pretty cut and dry. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I didn't know if you had discovered anything from the V1 to V2 inside that'd be worth talking about, or if this was really just a simple, you were the pro and you thumbs it up for what we were doing.
Yeah, really, it was. V1 worked really good for us, and we had no reason to change anything, and we just kind of went with changing the amount of length, and there wasn't much thought around changing it.
Sure. All right. Looks like we kind of got people stopped typing in here. Is there any last thoughts on things to add to this timeline here? Do you think we've got a good view of this? I know some retros will have more of a specific breakdown by the minutes when things break or things like that. And I know that this was a smoother run, so having a smaller timeline is somewhat expected.
Yeah, I think timeline by date is expected, right? The post-mortems where there's an actual issue that needs that we wish had gone differently, I think then the minute by minute is good, but I don't think that's necessary here.
Cool. Well, I can walk us through this timeline now that we've got it, just so we can have a recap for it. And of course, these are being recorded as well. So for the recorded meetings and looking back at this is beneficial as well. On 8/16, the forum proposal was first set in motion by John on the Fox forum, and there's a whole bunch of conversations that spin out into all kinds of different sort of liquidity mining issues that the DAO is facing for vote. But one of the biggest ones was the farming liquidity, which then turned into a boardroom proposal that was posted on 9/5. Both of those are linked there on those first two if people would like to read any more of the details inside that. Then on 9/9, product and engineering met to go over the design specs of everything that was expected to be added to these new features. And then shortly after that meeting, it looks like we actually rushed that and started that design spec before it actually passed, with an assumption that it would pass, so we could get ahead of the work. And the proposal passed on 9/12 with 4.05 million votes. Sounds like someone's unmuted there.
My bad.
No worries. On 9/13, we had a story breakdown, and from there on 9/15, the prod contract and test contract were created and deployed. We had a big old gap where I imagine that engineering did some testing on some of those features that kind of got handed over from product to operations just before the 10/11 go no go. That's the first time we got everyone from all the different work streams together to make sure that all of their boxes were being checked. On 10/12, the next morning, we funded the contract because the go no go went swimmingly and there was no issues. But then on 10/14, we found an expired bug contract, and a couple hours later, we were able to fix it. There's some first support tickets of issues with redrawing and restaking, and some of those are still lingering now, but we seem to feel that we've fixed them for most users there. And then if you'd like to see the archive of the prod issues conversation on where we both discovered, created a ticket, and then deployed the ticket for the fix, that link is there. Is there anything else that anyone wants to add to that timeline or feel that I missed, or is there anything inside there that we want to talk about that maybe an idea got brought up while I was going through that timeline? All right, I'll take that as an all good there, and we will move on to our next section here. And that's the celebrating the wins and discussing improvements that we could do in the future. Looks like we had some interaction with some people adding pluses here. I can go through and talk about all these, but it might be better for people who entered those to talk about what it is they entered and why. So I will open up the stage here. And if you entered one of these and you have some words you'd like to talk about what we did well or what you think we could improve upon, now's the time to do so.
Cool. Well, I'll start since I did that top left, the GraphQL redesign. What we did is we took a look at the existing liquidity providing and staking GraphQL layer, and we just it was pretty convoluted. It was didn't give back full data. You know, you could get some data back, and then that data was needed to go get more data. And in the redesign, we were able to just kind of like get everything all at once, and it worked out really well. It made the front end code go much quicker than before, and it wasn't convoluted with state management and just like all the data was there, and it really worked out well.
Yeah, to piggyback on that, by refactoring the GraphQL later, that became our state management. You know, we didn't need middleware for anything. It removed the Redux layer altogether, and GraphQL just became the source of truth, minimizing 10 GraphQL calls for almost each action down to 1. So from a user experience and a developer experience, it's like night and day different to work in that area.
Does someone want to speak to the liquefier refactor and things that we did well there?
Yeah. I worked on a lot of this. Again, that kind of ties back to the state management side of it. Now the liquefier pattern that we adopted is more of a manager versus a router. The code organization is night and day different. Instead of having a class that's 1,000 lines long, that's kind of convoluted, hard to read, it's broken into very concise chunks that are easy to kind of digest. Yeah, not really much more to add to that, but again, it just the whole refactor in general from GraphQL all the way down to the UI is just a night and day difference.
Yeah, plus one on that. The new code in the liquefier was it was concise. The functions did really one thing. It was just much easier to work with.
Awesome. Thanks for that, guys. Sounds like redesign and refactoring is working well for us in the DAO. I would imagine that UI subscription to the new GraphQL, is that separate from the GraphQL redesign? Sorry, I'm a Luddite in some of this.
Probably we could wrap it all together in reality, but that was definitely where I had some hesitation just because the entire data structure kind of changed. So having the existing UI consumed from the new data structure, I definitely had some reservations on it, and it went surprisingly fast and surprisingly well. So that was where my main concern was when we started it, and it definitely went a lot better than I expected.
Yeah, same. I was a little worried about rewiring that UI, so I was glad to finish all the lower layers with a week left before our dev deadline there, and we had a full week to rewire that, and it just ended up working out pretty well.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, boys, for wrapping up on all of that. Does someone who's got another one of these things inside that things we did well like to share?
I can, since I'm the next one down, I put the contracts in the URL for fox.shapeshift.com and minimal changes needed. I feel like it just went really smoothly, updating the ineffable, I guess now Fox Farm repo, to just read its contract from the URL. And it was like very small changes. We got it done super quick. And really the biggest changes just came from getting that opportunities UI built out. And it went pretty smoothly. We didn't have a ton of bugs, but I felt like it was just went quick and easy, the way I like it.
I don't know if I should be happy or sad that you like it quick and easy, Jam, but I'm glad that it was quick and easy for you.
Thank you.
All right, mobile simplified state management.
Yeah, I can speak to that. It kind of ties in more with what we talked about, but because the GraphQL redesign worked out so well, and we could go and make one call, the state management on mobile was so much easier to follow and just very simple compared to the previous implementation, which was very spaghettified, I would say. So that, yeah, just all up and down the stack, things went really well on the redesign.
Would anyone like to comment about things that went well during our collaboration, or what we maybe did different to make our collaboration work well here in the DAO with this project?
Yeah, I put good collaboration just because working on the chain adapter stuff, it was nice to see a bunch of different people come together to help me get that into the main branch.
And would you say that that's something that was different from your previous experience with projects, or something specific to the DAO, or specific to this project here?
I suppose it wasn't horribly different from things that we've done in the past. I guess we sort of always had good collaboration, but for
keeping it up through the transition.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for the chain adapter stuff specifically, like it was nice to get help from I don't know, I had help from 5 or 6 different people, So it was very helpful. Thank you to all who helped out with that.
Yeah, I'll add on to that. Even from the very beginning, going into this, we had already decided on another set of work, and talked about, just met as an engineering team who was going to work on what, get all set, and then we need to do the contract v2 work. And it just was pretty, although I see there's a comment up there on the right of too many meetings. I think it did take a couple of meetings to figure out, but then we eventually rearranged ourselves so we could get this done. But I did feel like it was very collaborative, and I don't know if maybe because it was collaborative, there were more meetings versus someone telling everyone, okay, you now go work on this and you're going to work on this because our priorities changed.
Yeah, I'd be interested what meetings specifically are referred to.
Yeah, I put the fewer meetings, and for me, it seemed like the community meetings, like having other DAOs come in and talk about their propositions and those kinds of things. I wasn't referring to the meetings that the collaboration meetings. I was more referring to the meetings of other DAOs and all the different propositions that people have, etc.
There got a lot of pluses there. Anybody that put a plus that was talking about the internal?
Just in general, I feel like there's a lot more meetings now, and there's a lot more expectation to be at all these meetings versus just being focused on what we're supposed to be working on. From being an internal employee versus now just working on the outside, I definitely feel like there's a lot more focus on so much of this community, and it's kind of a distraction, honestly, most days of the week.
Yeah.
That's why I
feel you on that.
Who was that?
I did a +2. I agree with everything he said.
So that's general meetings, not necessarily meetings about the specific effort that are detracting from focus time.
Correct. At least for me.
Yeah.
Cool.
Was that a woman who also spoke up and said that? Or
it was Megan?
Sure was. It was Crypto Meg.
Oh, Crypto Meg. Oh, okay. Yeah.
I was just seconding, just because I'm not sure if really anything's going down in stage chat. So I was just giving I agree in terms of the community calls, it can be very overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah. Appreciate that. Yeah. Gotcha.
I know that I'm not on any of the work streams. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
It never was. I can understand, coming from a normal workload and stuff like that, and me owning a lot of my own companies and entrepreneurship and stuff. The meetings can be very draining and can lead to a lot of distractionary things. I can understand that, but as the DAO is just getting rolled out, I think it's kind of important to have engineering and the other work streams involved and participating. I know that it takes away from your day-to-day and your hours that you're putting in, and your many hours that you're putting in for actual coding and doing your job, doing your roles. But I do feel that it does have some significance to the DAO itself, to seeing the participants voice their opinions, their thoughts, and their ideas. And I think that, it'll slow down as we start getting everything established and lay a good foundation and stuff. So, I mean, I know it's hard to ask you guys to, kind of, deal with it a little bit longer, but I think that it does serve an important role to the DAO itself to see the involvement of everyone and kind of like, give that support to what we're trying to work towards as a DAO. So, I mean, that's just my little no influence sense that I'm putting in on that. And the only other thing, maybe Tyler, so I'll wait a little. Overall, got a lot of kickback from gas prices and stuff, and we all know that that's going to happen. Especially with net and stuff. But I think that going forward, maybe we got to put a little bit more focus on educating individuals before they start making choices that they don't fully understand and getting hit with double fees and problems and so forth, just because of the pushback that we saw so much over the weekend and at the end of the week towards people just up in arms over just nonsense. Any crypto savvy person should research and do their own research and take those dives a lot more serious. But we all know that obviously this doesn't happen all the time, and it just gives us negative feedback and blowback, I think.
I'll keep. Thanks for all that. Never was. I'll keep going on the left side. The next two were mine. The work went quickly and smoothly, and bugs fixed quickly. So from my perspective, right? I remember me seeing this, and it was, if I go up to the timeline, right? The thing was up for vote on the 5th. We said, oh man, we better start looking at this, right? And it was that week, and then 9/9 is when we went over the designs, and it needed to be live on, right? We knew it was 10/11 or 10/12, and we hadn't even started really looking at it yet. And the fact that we went from, oh, we better do this, and having some just the initial requirements meetings, to it's dev done. It's, I guess the one thing is it wasn't quite fully tested, but it's dev done, it's tested, and it's live in just essentially exactly 1 month later, 4 weeks. I thought that was a big win for us and really good. And I know that that's because of those refactors, and there was a lot of concern about those refactors. Is that going to be the best way to go about it? And I'm really glad that we made some smart decisions there. And then also the fact that the fox.shapeshift.com code base is just such a nice place to work that it made that relatively quick too. And then finding bugs and fixing the bugs, that just all happened super fast. When bugs happened, they were fixed quick. So I thought we did that really well.
Yeah, I very much agree with you, Josh, on that. All of the things that we were able to triage and bring to Jim or to Doof or whoever else ended up working on them, anyone in product who helped write a ticket, it seemed like we were getting something deployed before we could even fully understand all of the aspects of the problem. So really excited to see the response time on that. And then I put the dev done well before launch, just to echo what Josh said there too. And all of my time at ShapeShift, normally a launch of something like this magnitude requires people to put in extra hours over the weekend or two before it launches, and people scraping around really quickly and multiple go-no-goes to make sure that we have all of our features ready. So this definitely felt like smooth sailing and like a very different sort of beast than what I was used to with launches of things. So thank you very much for everyone who put in the work to make this as smooth, and the thought to make sure that everyone else could work as quickly as they did. There's also one note in here, says planned ahead of coding. Is there anything specific that someone added there that they'd like to add to as well?
Yeah, that one was me. So just specifically referring to a meeting very early on when we first started out and decided the way that we wanted to implement this. Now there was a couple of options, like maybe a slightly quicker option that wouldn't have set us up so well for future iterations on this staking contract. And I think just taking a little time to plan and talk ahead tends to go a long way to ending up with something you're proud of at the end of it.
Yeah, +1 on that. There were two options. One was just kind of jam it into the current code base, and the other was to think ahead. And now, if we, once this contract ends, if we want to continue along with it, it'll be. I mean, it's literally like 4 lines of code, and that's it. And it just everything should work. So we're put up really well for the future.
Thanks for thinking ahead, guys. I'm glad to see that it is paying off so well so early with that. Now let's move on to the things we could improve upon. It sounds like we had a little bit of a conversation around the fewer meetings. We will have a section later about key takeaways and action items. So we don't necessarily need to solve the fewer meetings post, but if anyone had more things to add to that about meetings, this is a perfect time to chat about that.
I do have a comment that I'm going to save for the key takeaways section.
Awesome. All right. It sounds like that was aired already, so we can move on to testnet versus using mainnet. There's a lot of pluses there.
I didn't put this one, but I could certainly speak to it, but I want to give the opportunity. Who wrote this one? And there's some pluses there too. Oh, one of those pluses is mine.
I wrote it. It's as we move into this decentralized world, we're not going to have operations to necessarily rely on and always have, unlimited funds to kind of test. I know during our heavy week of testing, I think there was easily like $1,500 worth of ETH that I burned through just, on gas just to make sure everything was working end to end. And it'd be nice to be able to do that in an environment where it doesn't cost us any money.
Yeah, I think that I'm glad you put this one, and I think that this one might be related to the third one. There are a couple of conversations I had where it's like, I'm like, okay, well, let's test this, and someone would talk about the gas fees, and I mentioned it. Right now, it doesn't matter. The working functionality is way more important than spending more money on gas. But yeah, we definitely need testnet because it's ridiculous how much it costs, and we want to be able to test over and over and over and over again. And if it prevents that, puts blocks for people to just be spending, which that's a pretty rational human, I don't want to spend thousands of dollars. That would be very helpful.
Yeah, definitely a +1 on that. Going forward, using a testnet will have like countless advantages. Working with the main net, you can get ingenuity in how to test without actually doing something on chain, which takes time to figure out how to do that, and just that takes time away from being able to code.
I do want to communicate the old ShapeShift adage of testnet schmeshnet. From my experience, and maybe I'm playing a little bit of devil's advocate where I don't need to here, But from my experience, having expectations that just because it worked on testnet means it's going to work the same on mainnet has burned many different projects, including ShapeShift before. So I know that testnets are getting better all the time, and maybe our features and what we're testing there can be set up in a way that we are preventing ourselves from testing things that would have any sort of different experience or expectation on mainnet. But I do know that that was something that we kind of stood by enough to the point that we made T-shirts about it, because we felt that it was almost like playing in vaporware.
I do. There's certainly a lot to that. I do think that the test nets are better, but my main point about that would be we still get to the point where we need to test on mainnet. I'm for sure. I think we have to test on mainnet before we launch. I just think it can be like way sooner, closer to the live date, and we can do a lot of work. And then if we're not having to come up with these workarounds to do things without actually doing things on chain, and the engineers can just test we can run automated tests even on Robston testnet, then I think by the time we get to testing on mainnet, it'd be way more just more solid and less errors. So, but yes, we still absolutely have to have a full regression test on mainnet.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff, for that. I think that's a great compromise in between the two. I posted the getting full testing of features done before launch. The specific on this one was that operations was not completely aware of all of the different approval transactions that needed to be required for unstaking and the UI that needed to be paired with that. And I think there was just maybe either an assumption or a breakdown in communication about expected features. So through our tests, we gave a thumbs up when we should have done a little more discovery there, so it didn't come to bite us back as a bug after the launch.
Tyler, maybe we need to invite operations to the kickoff, like the very beginning, first meeting with product and engineering, just so there's an understanding of the scope.
Sure, yeah, happy to be in any of those meetings as early as possible. But that is an action item. All right, community integration was the next item up there.
Yeah, I put that one down. I think there was a few things I experienced during this process that I felt could maybe go a little bit smoother. I don't remember if the person that was working with us ended up getting to some of like the breakdown meetings about the work. But if not, I feel like if we could try to get them there and included in some of that, I think it would be good. Another thing too, I feel like in some of these cases as well, like I think we just threw them into the code base and we're like, here's a ticket, go. And like maybe we could have been a little bit better about at least giving a quick run through of the code, just like quick do a screen share and be like, hey, this is kind of where we're working. This is how the things are working inside of here. Just so that they're not completely getting thrown in head first. And another thing too, I was kind of thinking as well is in our particular case, there was some personal stuff that came up, and especially with a deadline, we're kind of trying to figure out when they're going to be able to get to it or not. And I think like maybe when we're working with the community, if we could maybe just ask like, hey, whenever you're done for the day, just like push up a draft PR or something, because then we could at least be reviewing as they go along. We could give suggestions or point them in the right direction if they're possibly overlooking something. And also if something does come up because their full time isn't dedicated to the DAO like ours is, we can be like, okay, that's fine. That something came up. We're going to take over your branch and get it pushed over the line. Those were just a few things I was thinking about while we were going through this process.
Those are good points. Can you specify just or actually I can do it. So you're talking about the developer community integration, right?
Yeah. Getting developers on board with helping us out as we do these things.
Yeah. Man, we're learning tons of lessons about that lately, huh? That is definitely not a nut that we have yet figured out how to crack.
Yeah, I definitely think too, one of the things I thought from the get-go was just like trying to be better about code documentation, and leaving some comments and stuff like that. I don't, with like the Fox Farm repo, I know Dove, myself, and Beard put that together really quick, so there wasn't a lot of time for documentation at the time. But just moving forward, when we're making these code bases and stuff, I think that trying to have as much documentation, it could be in developer guidelines or with testing, or if maybe it's just a confusing, like you had to do some wild logic and you just put like a little comment or something, I think could go a long way in these situations where some people are coming in that don't have all of our shared knowledge that we've been creating over all the years, and they could feel a little bit more comfortable getting in there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Maybe with that, Jim, when we get down to the action items or key takeaways, we can distill some of that again in just a second or two. I wrote down fee education / communication as kind of a paraphrase of some of what never was communicated a little bit earlier in here. I've noticed a lot of features that ShapeShift has released that have some connection to network fees, regardless of chain, that when we've launched, we've had much ire and anger from our community members and users who are either uneducated about network fees or who don't find much use in the feature because of the network fees that might be going on at the time. And I know that's not necessarily all our fault, but it sounds like maybe it's something for us to continually think or pitch over to marketing and growth on how we can always shape our messaging around educating users about what we have control over and what they have control over.
I think one other piece is to add there. I think if when we get Pendo integrated, I think that is maybe something that we can, within the product, that's something that we could use there. That might be really helpful for users.
GK just posted in the stage chat showing the fee before it's locked. Is that something we have the capability or feature set to do, or is that one of those we don't know until we send things?
That's showing what the total gas cost will be before the approval. That's what you're saying, Tyler? Do we have the ability to do that? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good question. We were just talking about this too recently for the Yearn integration, and the UI UX mockups include basically showing users like an estimate of the total gas fees even before the approval is done. I think the challenge is that, to your point, we can't like just use the regular gas estimate call for Web3 until the approval has taken place. But that said, what we can do is, because we know what the average gas cost is, or the average like gas limit for each of these transactions. This is a good question for the engineering team, but theoretically, we should be able to at least show an estimate, which I would argue is still better to the user to like show them that estimate, even if it's not perfect. It should be very close, than not showing them that until they do the approval and then find out. It's pretty common. We've heard that a lot of people who aren't super experienced doing these transactions will not expect that second transaction. So they'll assume there's just one. They'll see a much lower gas price. They'll execute that first transaction. Then they get surprised when they see this like second gas price. It's, you know, sometimes an order of magnitude more expensive. So I think theoretically we should at least be able to show that estimate. And I agree. I think it'd be a good improvement for us to make when we can.
Yeah, and to add on to that, that's one of the things that we're looking into for the integration to ensure that we can show that estimate. Backup plan is to show some sort of message, like not like a warning, but just like a message saying that there will be a second gas fee to do the actual deposit. But I think most people probably agree that that is a piece that's very confusing for users. And it's a piece that definitely I think we can improve upon.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen any place that is giving the full estimate. And to the point of it surprising people, I was watching some YouTube tutorial on staking with, I don't know if it was with Toke or somewhere. And he's like, okay, here's one transaction. Oh, like $20. And he was like, oh man, that hurts, you know, but okay, I'll do it. And then when the second one came up, this is a guy who's like teaching people how to do it, like supposedly been through it before. Oh my gosh, another one. And this one's like $90. And he was just like almost canceled the whole process. So I think it's totally common. But I just want to just be careful about how much dev work we're going to try to do to estimate it. And maybe if we can just, since we're in total control of the messages, right? It's not like you're just connecting to MetaMask and another one shows up, but we're in total control of the message. We could say this first approval transaction is going to cost this much. There will be, and we can put it in all caps, there will be another transaction to, you know, and something like that.
Totally.
I think from a first version, maybe we can iterate later and then get some kind of estimate, but just changing the copy could help.
Yeah, I agree with that, Josh. Also, one example that we saw, which is actually does a pretty good job of it, even though their estimate is not totally accurate, is the XDAI bridge. They do let you know that there's going to be 2 transaction costs, and they give a rough estimate for the second one. Anyways, that was a good example that we saw. But yeah, I agree. We can do the low lift, at least let the user know that there are 2, and then either try to get the estimate in there now or get maybe something to look into later on.
Yeah, I agree, Josh. Only thing I'll add is if we were to do it, what we could do is just have basically a hard-coded gas price for that second transaction. And you can see, if you look at all the transactions, like there's only a very small variance with what the gas limit is for all of these staking transactions, because they're all effectively the same thing, just staking LP tokens into contract.
I have to verify, but I think when I was playing around with XDeFi's wallet this weekend with some stuff, and if I remember correctly, I think they did summarize and break it down. And as Willie said, it had to be an estimate, obviously. But I think that with their full release, it was breaking it down before anything was done and showing the estimated costs that would be associated. I'd have to double back and check again to make sure, but I believe I did see both the approval and the actual staking in there. So that might be something, if other people are looking at that wallet or playing around with it, might notice as well. I was just trying to get it from MetaMask if I could, so I was trying to force myself to utilize that for some of my transactions.
Yeah, and I think looking ahead, having the ability for the user to input a lower gas price. Some of these transactions, like adding liquidity, you may not care if it happens now or overnight or whatever. And you can actually, if you're able to input your own gas price, then you can control that and control how much you're going to spend.
Okay, can we, I'm looking and I noticed that we've got 8 minutes left and I have a hard stop at 2. Can we make sure we put in one of the takeaways, or I don't know if it's action items, of like include ops in the first kickoff so you're aware of the full requirements to be tested? Thank you. And then the other one, I just wanted to say one thing about the meetings and the community meetings. It's for like those in the engineering work stream. This just this is Josh's. My expectation is not that you attend all of those, that you just of the community meetings, you attend the ones that you're interested in, and please balance that with the time that you have to also do the work that you need to get done, or work while you're in them. Or I personally don't think they're necessary. I don't attend all of them. I probably attend a majority, but I'd say for if it's not something that you want to do, you should not feel obligated to attend all those community calls.
Yeah, thank you for steering us, Josh, back towards this. Yeah, I've got a couple of key takeaways I've just written down that are on the screen there, including what Josh just added there on those last two.
Can you put, instead of meetings, say community calls? I mean, there's some meetings that everyone's got to come to, but it's the community calls is specifically.
Does anyone else have any key takeaways they'd like to add on this as well? All right.
When we focus on a single thing and give it emphasis and importance and see it all the way through, we tend to deliver quality. So I guess like more finishing, less starting is my opinion there.
It's a good one.
All right. And then now that we've just got 5 minutes left, if anyone has any more key takeaways, we'll add them, but let's give action items a chance as well. So this is if there's anything specifically that an individual inside this meeting would like to volunteer to do something to help towards something that we can do better, or just things that we as a DAO should be focused on for action items afterwards. Both of those are relevant and fair.
I'll do my best to remember to include operations in the kickoff calls.
On that note, Tyler just added you to the one that's at 2 p.m. for Yearn. It's the engineering breakdown. We did the kickoff last week, but invited you to it just now. And happy to include Lich if that makes sense. But I think
Yeah, awesome. I'll do my best to also butt my head or foot in wherever I need to for meetings as well, to make sure I'm in the know, or someone from our work stream is. So thank you guys. Are there any action items from that talk we had about doing better with dev community involvement that we would like to add on either key takeaways or action items here?
Yeah, I guess like maybe it's really just trying to be better about setting up the community members for success when coming into feature set. Not that it didn't go well or anything, but I just think we could have done better with that. Yeah, and I think the other thing that would have probably been helpful is just asking for like for them to be keeping their code pushed up to like a draft PR as keeping it up, the draft PR up to date as much as possible, I think would be helpful too.
Awesome.
I think really we probably could be better about that in general, just so people could see what we're doing and comment and suggest along the way. I think we've talked about that as core engineers as well. So that could probably go for all of us, really.
Is there anything for action items that we can put to a list to get us closer to using testnet inside any of our future projects? I know that was a conversation that got started here, and maybe we can't finish it here, but maybe we can start the proper planning for that.
I think some of that's in progress, isn't it?
Is that about testnet, Tyler? Did you just bring?
Yes.
Yeah, that's just on engineering. Yeah, it is in progress. There's really nothing to do except for engineering to actually get the Robston testnet integrated. And yeah, on that note, I do need to go and get to my next meeting. So thank you, Tyler, for leading us through this. Thanks everybody for participating, and thanks to the community for those of you that came in and just listened in. I just wanted you to know that your presence matters. Even if you're don't have an active thing to say in the meeting, it's still great to see community involved and interested in what we're doing. So thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. We'll have these docs shared inside the recorded meetings as well as the recordings of this. And look forward to another retro on Wednesday and more meetings in the future. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, Tyler.
you.